Hey there, welcome. This is a continuation of my last video. My last video was about what the world needs. And it's not fully about like physical things it needs, like environmentally sustainable energy and, social housing and stuff. It's about what we need to do as individuals to be able to make community so that we can thrive and have a healthy, happy lives that are more and more uh, disconnected, less reliant upon global systems which require a lot of suffering and extraction and exploitation. Basically, getting into networks that require a lot less exploitation. And it was mainly about how we end up exploiting other people in certain ways. And there's a lot of ways that this works. I mentioned uh, how we are transactional, competitive, comparative, and controlling, emotionally controlling usually, but sometimes authoritatively too. Um, and I'm fiery, I'm passionate about this because it's pretty much like I'm here to do that. Like I'm just like some random pattern in the universe that's present, able and willing to help and make those things happen. I don't have a ton of resources. I can't purchase the land that people can live on. I can't pay someone else's rent. I can't, build a house for somebody. There's a lot of things I can't do because I don't have those skills, and I'm taking the time to learn other skills. And or I just like there's just property rights, ownership laws, etc. Just legally can't do certain things. And but I'm here and present to do all those things. And I've been in situations where I was actively helping people trying to make community or self sufficient, you know, properties, homesteading, and all of those things I mentioned happened. And it pushed me away, or just literally kicked me out. Because you can tell that it's not a healthy environment to stay in long term, and you see that you have to basically do a little dance with the people in power, and this will end up exploiting other people. And I'm not going to do that. I already don't like that. Just I don't know what's on the other end of buying certain products, like just mostly food. I try my best, but at the end of the day I don't know, and that already sucks. I don't want to actively exploit members of a group to make it so the group can survive and have it's just like it's weird. It's not ethical. So I'm not going to do that. And that's what I see kind of needs to happen subtly a lot of the times. I'm not saying that's universal or that there isn't some good community out there, but I don't have the capacity to go and check them all out. So it's just the ones I have checked out. But another big thing I've noticed, it's kind of like people would call it judgment. That's like a big thing in a lot of people, and it just makes it hard. It just makes it hard to have a good time and to interact long term and to do projects together and to have sustainable interactions that are productive and growth oriented, because we just have people judging each other. But judging is actually assumptions. And assumptions are really not good. Like assumptions, there's like, I forget the guy's name, but he wrote the Four Agreements. And one of them is don't assume things. And this is very wise. And it's basically, an active tenet in Vedanta and Buddhism. As you learn to do mindfulness and you meditate and you practice these lineages, you realize like, oh, I can't believe all this assumptions about reality at large, so I'm not going to make any of them. Like these are all just like limited viewpoints. This is all just like putting a limited value on part of God, on part of Buddha, on part of infinity. And it's just like, that's not honest, so we don't do that. So they kind of have the extreme of don't make assumptions. But just for the sake of like the saying, the community. We shouldn't make assumptions about other people. And that's kind of what judgments are. We're putting an assumed value upon another entity. And usually it's just negative. Like usually it's very limited, it's contracted. We give it a negative meaning. And then this does a lot of things. It taints our perception. It paints a picture. So when we see the person do certain things and talk in certain ways, we begin to perceive it under the lens of the assumption, rather than just seeing it for what it is. This also makes it so we might react and behave in certain ways around these people. And this makes it really difficult to create trust, makes it difficult to cooperate and harmonize when we have these judgments, when we have these assumptions. And this does go beyond just how we assume something about a person. It includes how we assume events, how we assume words, how we assume any part of reality, really. When we learn the capacity to question our assumptions and not believe them, and question cultural assumptions, question assumed behaviors, question our assumptions about what a tone in a voice means or what a certain word means, question our assumptions about like why somebody said or did something. A lot of times people will have like whole stories, basically a string of assumptions, whole stories about why that person said that and why they said it like this and what that meant, and they're thinking this and they felt this about me and they're judging me, when it's just like they just said words, man. Like that was just, who knows? Like, don't assume. You might be right, but like you don't know. So why attach to that? Like, it's more honest to be like, I don't know. Maybe something else. Maybe it's something nicer, but I don't know. So I don't need to give time and energy to assumptions, and thus I'm more free to understand why things happen. I'm more free to behave and react in certain ways because I'm not geared towards assuming it's negative or assuming somebody's negative or something they did was negative. And this is actually like echoed in a lot of psychotherapy. It's like how we assume the things about the world, a lot of black and white thinking, a lot of, making things extreme, a lot of, negative assumptions about ourselves, about the world, about what people think about us, about why people do things or what something meant. And the therapist basically questions the patient, questions those thoughts, questions those assumptions. And then that helps the patient not have so many negative reactions. And without so many negative reactions, we can start to think more and more clear, increase our clarity, increase our neutrality, increase our acceptance of anything, of people, of situations, of thoughts, of ourselves. And so this assumption also applies to ourselves. We often assume a lot of things about ourselves, and it can go. I find it goes in mostly one or two ways. Like, we assume negative things, limitations. We assume like almost like a lacking upon ourselves, or we just assume we're the shit, we're good, we're great, we don't really need to change. Both don't work. Both are non-functional in the long run. Both make it hard to actually operate in a community. One, you don't get to actualize your full potential. The other, you become resistant to criticism and feedback and don't realize your weaknesses that harm or impact other people. So assumptions about ourselves, also don't need them. It's like, you just don't need to do it. So it's just like, it's interesting because it's a widespread habit that we do in many ways upon many different parts of reality, but there is a way to take reins of our awareness, this right here, our consciousness that's always present, and just choose as it comes to not assume. Like, it's as easy as like, would you think an orange is evil? Could you think an orange is evil? Maybe you could. Maybe you can imagine it's evil. But then you could probably easily just be like, well, I don't know. It's not evil. It is that easy. That's the hardest part, is that it's that easy. That's a weird thing to say. The hardest part is that it's that easy. But just not assuming something, just being like, I'm my present consciousness, regardless of the momentum of my physiology, my somatic senses and my emotions and whatever's going on in my body, regardless of the momentum of that, I just choose to not assume. And I'm not it's not fully my fault that assumptions happen. It's just like a part of how we get conditioned to see the world. And so it's as easy as like the orange isn't evil. But you just have to do it a lot more. It's just a habit. It's like this easy, minute habit that you have to do. I say have to, it's like in the end you don't have to do anything, but like if you want to not have the repercussions of assumptions, then it's like a muscle memory, like a habit of continually, when assumptions arise from our habituated consciousness, we, as our present moment awareness, choose, I don't believe that. No. There's other ways to look at things, and we don't know that's true. So no. And then you just do that over time, and it becomes weaker and weaker and weaker till they just almost don't happen at all. The orange is an evil. And I wanted to talk about this because it occurred to me like right after that, when we control people and we manipulate them emotionally, usually accidentally, we're not doing it on purpose, by throwing tantrums and getting upset and causing arguments and like just creating bad energy, like bad feedback. It's usually because we have an assumption that what that person is doing or did or does or sounds like is bad. Something's negative about it. We're assuming a value upon it that's usually negative when it's not. It's just a pattern. And we can actually take the effort to be like, how is it good? We don't need to do this for like really unethical things that are causing like detritus and manipulation and suffering upon others. We don't need to like put in the effort to find what's good about it. And in those cases, it's good to basically, act, to have an activist vibe. But like I said in the last video, you need discernment for that. And that means you need to see like, what is suffering? And suffering isn't so cut and dry. The ones that are cut and dry are pain. Pain, suffering is pretty cut and dry. If you're doing it physically to another being and they're basically saying ow, or they're like stop, or like this hurts, you stop. That's it. If it's emotional, like it's non-physical, it's abstract, so we can't have empirical evidence about it, then it requires a conversation, it requires getting more data. So we can't make assumptions about what is causing suffering at all times. But with physical pain, pretty easy to understand. With exploitation, it's usually pretty easy to understand. It's usually pretty obvious. There's subtler versions that require more nuance and a psychological conversation, but the ones to get worked up about are mostly the obvious ones. And that's hard to say because like I can't go through every example here, obviously. But the point is to be like things that are abstract and uncertain and like we don't really have physical evidence of them. We should learn to contemplate and converse about them, not get upset. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to talk about assumptions because it's also rampant. There are probably other rampant character traits that most humans have that are causing difficulties in creating long-term multi-person bonds, networks, groups, and communities. But those are some of the big ones. Other ones are just like just a lack of communication skills, like just not being able to communicate well, like not understanding how that works and how to adapt to what people need, and then how to just continue on even if some people aren't having it, because communication is always a two-way street. You need both parties willing and motivated to converse, and not just converse, but to come to harmony. And that could be compromise, that can be agreeing upon something, that can be, contractual something. It can be a lot of things. But if both parties aren't doing that, you get stagnancy, you get a stalemate, you get awkwardness, because then it's like, okay, well now we have to basically trudge through this unresolved differences, unresolved tension to just make the community operate. And then you lose the essence a little bit. And that's when you basically have someone that doesn't want the community. They might think that they want it, but there's something within them that's actually conflicting with that, is creating a paradox. Because anybody that really wants community, earnestly, that wants things to work well amongst a group of people, they will want to communicate, they will have the motivation to communicate, to solve problems, and to come to harmony. Harmony, there's infinite varieties of harmony. And there's infinite varieties of disharmony. So it's not something we need to get so picky upon. We just need to come to it. To one of them, one of the good ones. So anybody, not instantly, but over time, anybody that just like keeps not being able to communicate and come to harmony and solutions, they probably have something in them that doesn't want harmony. They probably want some level of hierarchy where they get more than others, or other people are on top, something like this. Because otherwise, it's not hard to come to harmony. It's really just hard to get past the communication differences and the psychological imperfections of people, like the controllingness and the assumptions and the competition and the transactionalness. But really, if both parties are just like, man, I just want this to work, like, we can do that, right? Like that's really all I want. It's gonna happen. It's pretty easy. Like, you don't have to do anything actually, and harmony is already the present state of infinity. So it's like extra easy. So if there's like this constant debate, this constant thing of like tension and lack of harmony, even though it seems like everyone's trying to and communicating and putting effort into making harmony, it usually means some person deeper down, like below the appearance, below what's expressed, actually wants disharmony. They don't know it. They want a hierarchy. They want to be better. They want to have more. They want to control. And so they want freedom, but then other people do not have freedom. They don't think of it like this, but that's the outcome. I have the freedom to choose how things are and to enact it, and other people don't. That's good. I like that. That's the best way. No, this is fucked, and this is not how we should be as humans. The only time we control people is when it's consensual and we have a leadership position where this person is skilled at managing in some manner and they do that benevolently. That's the only time that some sense of like control is really good, is when it's consensual and it's just an allocation of skills for the benefit of the group, not just to have the ideology met of some individual that just likes it a certain way. So if I come up with more that I see that I've noticed, I'll make another video because it's fun. Love ya. Thank you for watching. Om Saram.